Hi everyone and welcome back to our building series episode 2. In the first part we done the job of adding our block here and be able to click and place it into our world. But what we want to be able to do now is be able to select which block we want to place by creating a menu system for that block. So that's what we're going to do in this episode, is start work on our menu UI system. And yeah, let's get started. So first things first, we're going to create a new folder to keep ourselves organized. User interface, we'll call it. And in here, we're going to have a couple of things. So as standard, we want to have a HUD overall widget. So we're going to go widget blueprint and call this one heads up display. And then we're going to create another one. And the other one is going to be the build menu. So the heads-up display is the overall container for all the elements of inside your scene, and the build menu is the menu that you're going to see come up when you access the building tool. And from that menu, based on what you've got in your inventory, in your ingredients inventory, you'll be able to select which block you want to build. So let's go into my build menu, and let's get rid of the canvas panel. So for this, we're going to do a size box, and I'm going to set a width and a height override, turn both on, and we're going to set a width override here to, let's say, 1500, and a height of, let's say, 800. We can tweak these later on as we wish. Then inside that size box, we're going to put in a border object, and the border object is going to work as our background color. So I'm going to select on it, and I'm going to scroll down to where it says brush color, and I'm just going to do it black with an alpha of 0.8. And click OK. Okay, so there's my border. Next we're going to do the tab system and then the central window. So I'm going to have tabs down here, the left hand side, which have different categories. So you have inventory and build menu and maybe stats or skills, whatever you want to be. So you have different menu systems inside of this one big menu, and then it will change the center console here to reflect that choice. So let's do that. We need a horizontal box, and we need a horizontal box because we know we want 2 columns as our top hierarchical organization of it. And this horizontal box here is going to have a vertical box for the left hand side, and then it's going to have a widget switcher in the right hand side. So there's our vertical box, and there's our widget switcher. Now we're going to rename our widget switcher here to menu content, and make sure it is variable. And our vertical box here we'll rename here we'll call this menu tabs. Inside your menu tabs, we're going to have a variety of buttons. So we're going to drag in a button, and this button here is going to be styled and have text in it. So let's put some text in there, and the text we're going to make it say building, or build we'll call it. And this will be the button we have to click when we want to show the building menu content. So let's just design this menu to button to look a bit better. So I'm going to change my vertical box here, and we're going to change it to say fill, but I'm going to type in the value of let's do 0.1. And then on my menu content, I'm going to click fill, and that'll fill up the remaining space. Okay, so what I've told my menu tabs to do is fill up 10% of the space here, and I might increase that actually to 0.2. There we go. Next, we need to change the size of our buttons to make it look a little bit better, and add some padding around the whole entire thing as well. So let's do this. So go into button, and on the padding here, I'm going to do a value of 10 across all 4 areas, and maybe up that a bit more. Let's say 30. There we go. Next, we're going to do is click on our text, and our text we're going to go into padding again, but this time on the top and the bottom I'm going to change that to 30, and bottom to 30. And you'll see the spacing of the button increase. Next, I'm going to click on the button again, back on that, and let's scroll down and change the background color of this to be, let's change it to white. Leave it as white, sorry. Next, we're going to go into changing the style of our button. So you see this gradient that's on it. It's fine, you can leave it like that, but we're going to add our own sort of custom styling to this. So for that, you go into style and you'll see normal, hovered, pressed, and disabled. I'm going to go to normal, and you'll see that no image associated to this. And we can set one here, so you can make one in like Photoshop or something and add that in. Totally up to you. But I'm going to keep mine really simple. I'm going to create a material. So we're going to go to material, and we'll call this one button matte. And I'm going to do something really, really simple. Just make it plain white. And that'll help me get rid of that gradient that we have on it. Okay. Click on the button matte, and we're going to change the material domain from surface to user interface. We need to click that onto final color there. Okay, so that's our material done for that. So now if I associate that to my image here, button matte, you'll see the color of it change. And the reason why I've done it white is because if I go to tint here, I can customize it here to whatever I like. So I can choose a flat grey if I want, or color, totally up to me. So I'm going to go for a sort of midpoint grey. So I'm going to change all these to 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 to get my midpoint grey there. And I'm going to click OK. One thing I might do is change the alpha here to be 0.5 and click OK. Now, the benefit of messing about with the tint in here is because then I can tweak it for when I do the hovered. So when I go to hovered here, I can choose button mesh here, a button matte, sorry, and rather than 0.5, let's up that to 0.75, 0.75, 0.75, and alpha 1. So when it's hovered, it's going to change itself to be slightly whiter. And when it's pressed, we're going to change it again to button matte. And I'm going to leave it as pure white when I click on it. The text, I'm going to change the color of. So I'm going to go to my text here and change the color of my text here to be dark color, such as black. You can include custom fonts as well if you want, but we're not going to worry about that today. So there's my build button. Okay, so I'm going to rename this one build button. Say build tab button, we'll say tab button. And the text for that, we'll might as well name it here as well, build tab text. Okay, so we've got one button there, but we're going to have multiple, so let's duplicate that. So I'm going to hit Control W with it selected, and it'll duplicate it. And I can go onto this one here and rename this one to inventory tab button. And as you can imagine, the text inside is going to be changed to be inventory. Okay. And you will have more later on when we do like things like skills and things like that if you wanted to do. But for now, we'll leave it as just these two. Okay, so we've got our button set up. Next, we're going to worry about is the content. So we're just going to worry about the build content here. So the build content, we're going to have a grid basically of options available to us, or like a list. We'll see how we go, and it will be faded out if we can't build with it, and obviously filled in if we can build with it. And for that, we'll do an inventory check, and we'll work on that later on. Let's just get it so we can see the tabs building up here. So rather than building manually in here, what we're going to do is we're going to create another widget for our build menu content. And the build menu content is going to be the container of all these buttons, which we'll add to that widget switcher. So we can get rid of the canvas panel there and click compile and just close that for now. Then we'll create another widget blueprint, and this will be build buttons. and these would be the individual buttons with each block associated to them. So let's do this actually as a list. So I'm going to get rid of the canvas panel, and we're going to do a horizontal block. And inside the horizontal block, we're going to have a border. And that border, we're going to hit fill. And when it's filled up, we're going to go down to where it says brush color, and we're going to change that to black. No, we change it to white, sorry. And I want to change the alpha to 0.2. Okay, so it's nice and light. Then we're going to have an image inside our our border needs to be replaced with the horizontal box. Sorry. So right click on horizontal box and replace with child. Now add a horizontal box inside of our border. That's the correct way around. Apologies for that. And inside there we're going to have an image. And that'll be like a thumbnail for the thing we want to build. So we'll leave it like that. And we'll change this from fill screen, by the way, to desired, so we can actually see what this thing's going to look like. And like what we did with the buttons on the build menu, we're going to add padding around our horizontal box, so we've got nice spacing around it. So on the horizontal box here, I'm going to go to the right hand side where it says padding and add a padding of 30 to every single one. So now you get this nice gap in between all the items. The image by default is a bit too small, so on the brush settings, change image size here to let's do 128 by 128. That's a bit better. And we'll rename that one block image. Okay, so that's the block image. Next, we're going to have the details of the block. So we're going to have the name of the block, a description of what it is and what it does, and then the ingredients that are required to make it. So let's go through that process. So let's add a vertical block to this. And the vertical block is going to have 3 text fields. So you're going to have text field 1, text field 2. So this first one's going to be the name. This one's going to be the description. And the third one is going to be the ingredients. So we'll do another text field there. For now, we'll probably tweak that to make it a little bit better later on. So I'm going to make my description a little bit smaller, as well as my ingredients field a little bit smaller. So I'm going to find my font settings and change that from 24 to say like 18. And do the same for the other one. Just so they're a little bit different from the top here. And also going to change them from bold to regular in this case. Okay. With ingredients, I'm actually going to force this to the bottom as well. So rather than doing it stretch out to fill the whole space vertically, if I hit the bottom one, it will line it to the bottom. And if I hit fill, it will fill up the space available to it. Okay, and that should do it really. I can see there's a bit of gap. We need to add some gapping between the vertical block and the image. So on the vertical box here, we're going to go to its padding for the left and add a padding of 30. There we go. Hit compile and save. So there's a few things in here that we need to make variable and able to be changed during the runtime of the game. So we've got the image, which is already variable because we added it in as a block image. Next, we need to make these text fields variable as well. So this first one, we're going to rename as block name. Is variable. Make that block name text. There you go. Next one, we're going to call block description text. Again, tick is variable. And bottom, we got block recipe text. Again, tick is variable. And hit compile. On the graph for this, we need to set these up with some variables that we can link up to when we spawn this thing in. So on the pre-construct, we'll do this. We're going to add 4 new variables, one for each one of these. So create new variable, and this will be the block name, and that'll be a type of text. And again, block description. Again, block recipe, and then we'll go and add one for the thumbnail. Block thumbnail, and that one will be a texture 2D. So all of these need to be exposed and public. So tick the little eyeball to make them all public. And then we need to make sure they're exposed on spawn. So on each one, click expose on spawn. And that will allow us to see it when we do create widget function. Okay, so now they're all exposed, we can link them up to these various things here. So they're not going to change anywhere else in the game. So once they're built, they're built. So on the pre-construct, that's the only place we'll need them. So let's do block description text. We'll do it in order that we've got there. So block description text, set text, and we'll tie in our block description. Then block image, set brush from texture, and that'll be your block thumbnail. We've got block name, set text, and that'll be block name, and then finally block recipe, set text. Oh, sorry, not from that one. This one. Set text, and that'd be block recipe. There we go. So they're all tied up with the button when it's created. So once that's compiled and saved, go into your build menu. Not build menu, so the build menu content. And in here, we're going to add those various buttons. So let's search for our buttons in a user created content. And you'll find your build buttons. Add one in, and there it is. And here we can add the various things. I haven't got the thumbnails in yet, but we can start with the block name. So here I can have test block, and the block description for this will do. This is the test block for testing purposes only. Block recipe, nothing required yet. And then the thumbnail will be blank. Hit compile. Now, one problem we'll see now is that it's stretched the whole way through. Now, to stop that from stretching, what we're going to do is tell it to not fill the whole entire space when we add it to our widget switcher. So if we go into our build menu now and look for our build menu content and drag it into your menu content, click on that. And we're going to tell that not to stretch in the vertical here. We just set it to align to top. And there you go. There's your build content. Now, right now it's not a problem with just one. But imagine you have loads of these. You may want to have this in a scroll bar. So to do that, you go back to your build menu content. And you wrap this with a scroll bar. And you can see it already filling up properly there. Hit compile, save, go back to your build menu, and now it's got a scroll bar associated to it. So if we go beyond the measures here, it'll add in those spaces. So if I were to duplicate our build menu here, you can see that scroll bar now appear, and compile, and you'll see that build menu appear there as well. I might add some spacing in between each of these, so let's show how to do that. So let me just delete all the other build menu buttons here. And we'll add some padding to this one to the top here. We'll add a padding of 10. Oh no, we'll do a padding of 15. And bottom here we'll do a padding of 15. Compile and save. So now when you duplicate this, there'll be a gap between all the items, which makes it a bit more visually pleasing. Okay. So there is our build menu. So let's show how to actually show this on the screen. It hasn't got any functionality yet. We'll do that in the next part, but let's just get it showing on the screen. So for this, we're going to create a new player controller. So go to add new, blueprint class, and player controller. And we'll call this one my player controller. Now, were you making this because the default one that comes with it, you can't really do much with it. So it's a good idea to make your own one. So therefore you can add stuff to it and manipulate in some way. So to make it use this new player controller, you need to get access to the game mode. So you've got the game mode settings here in the first person game mode if you're using the first person template. Otherwise, just open up your game mode or your world settings. You'll find the options there too, where you can go inside and edit the player controller class that is being used. So I'm going to change one to my player controller. Compile, and that's it. So now it's using this my player controller. So for this, I want to build the HUD and then build the functionality to spawn in and show that build menu. So let's add the build menu to the HUD. So go to heads up display and let's search for our build menu. There it is. Drag it into my canvas content. Click on build menu in your hierarchy and then go into the right side where it says size the content. Tick that and there's your entire build menu. So by default it will attach it to the top left hand corner. I'm going to make mine spawn in the center of the screen. So I'm going to click on the anchors, change it to center, then change position X and position Y to 0 in each case. Now you still see it's not entirely aligned correctly. That's because the alignment is set to 0, 0, which is the top left hand corner of the widget. So if you change that to 0.5 in the X and 0.5 in the Y, you will now have it perfectly in center the entire time on your screen. Hit compile and save. So now this heads-up display has this on it. It's kind of useless because it's always going to be there if we were to draw it to the screen. We want to toggle it off and on. So we're going to go and to where it says visibility and make it hidden. And hit compile and save. So now this thing is entirely hidden when it starts the game. So back on your player controller, on begin play, we're going to create widget and we're going to attach that to begin play, and the construct class is going to be the heads up display. The return value, we're going to promote that to a variable because we're going to need to reference it to change things about heads up display during the gameplay. So of course one heads up display, and then from there add to viewport. So at the start of the game it will do this, but you won't actually see nothing because it's hidden from us during the game. So for example, like so, you can't see it. So let's make it so we can actually see it. So I'm going to go into yes, heads up display here, go to graph, and we're going to make a function in here, new function, and call this one toggle build menu. Oh, misspelled it. There we go. Let's fix that. There we go. So toggle build menu. Now on the variable list, you'll see your build menu as an option. So drag that out and choose get. And then from there, we're going to type in get visibility. And that'll give you an enum. And we're going to go from there and switch. And you'll see the different states that your build menu could be in. So we'll only focus on visible and hidden at the moment. So let's look at these. So if it is visible, we want to make it not visible. So we're going to drag build menu out and set visibility to be hidden. Then on the hidden option, we're going to do exactly the same, but we're going to change the drop down here to visible. Make sure you tag the target into your build menu, and there you go. So now that function exists, we want to be able to actually use that function. So let's create a key press for this. So go to project settings, go to input, add new action mapping, and we'll call this one menu button or menu. And the menu button here is going to be the tab key on the keyboard, and we'll close that. On your player controller, we're going to add that functionality here. So type in menu And the reason why we put it on the controller is because the controller receives the inputs first. So if we've selected, you see on the right hand side it says consume input. So if I push the tab key, the controller will consume the tab key input and nothing else will receive a tab key input. So it makes it quite powerful in that regard. So when it receives this, we're going to go from pressed, and we're going to go and grab the head-up display reference and call the toggle build menu. And pressed there. So let's show that working. Hit play. If I hit tab, there's our menu. And if I hit tab again, you can see it disappear. So right now I can see that I want to add some padding on the right hand side of that. So let's just quickly tweak that. And we'll do that on the widget here. Padding on the right by 30. Save and save. And that'll do. So next I want to make it so that when I do go into menu, I want to make it so I can see my mouse and go into the input mode. And this will be the last thing we do in this part. So when we do that, we need to change the input mode. So to do that, we're going to need to know which view the build menu is actually in. So if I'm going to double click on that function, it'll come out like so. I'm going to add a return node to this. And I want to return the visibility of our build menu. So I'm going to drag build menu out, get, and from there I want to get visibility and plug that into my return node there. So rather than hook up all here and here, there's one option you can do, and that is to put it on the end of a sequence. So we'll do a sequence here. Ooh. And on then one, it goes to return node and outputs the visibility of our build menu. So when I go back to my player controller, I can now see the return value here, which is the visibility of the build menu. So using that, I can determine what I want to do with my player's input mode. So switch on eState visibility, and you get the same switch up. And if it's visible, we want to change the input mode to be UI only. So we're going to go and set input mode to game and UI. The player controller is the self because we're currently in the player controller. The widget to focus, we'll turn that into, well, leave it blank for now because we're only using mouse input. And then from after that, we're going to go set show mouse cursor. And we want to tick that on to be true. Next, we want to do the opposite for hidden. So set input mode to game only. Player controller again is self. And then set show mouse cursor is going to be equal to false. Hit compile, and let's test that out. So now you can see I've got the mouse and I can toggle it off and on. I've got my buttons here which change color, and there you have it. So in the next part, we're going to add the ability to click on these blocks to activate the build mode and place a block. So join us in the next part right now over on patreon.com/RyanDaily, where you can donate just $1 to get access to that video plus many, many others. Big shout out and thank you to every single Patreon and YouTube member who has donated so far. This wouldn't be possible without you guys, so thank you so much for your continued support. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little notify bell to make sure you don't miss out on any content that I'm releasing. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions below, leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.